It is January 1386. In Falaise in northern France, a vast crowd has gathered in the town square to watch a public execution. The condemned has been taken from the city jail and walked to the scaffold. She's wearing a jacket. She's wearing breeches. She has white gloves tied to her front teeth. A human mask has been placed over her face. The executioner has been paid extra 10 sous tournois for a new pair of gloves he had to provide. The condemned is a sow, a pig about 3 years old. 6 weeks earlier, she had wandered into a home of one Jonathan Le Macon and eaten the face of his 3-month-old infant. The baby died. The pig has been formally tried by a French court of law. She has been represented by lawyers. The case has been argued for and against. She has been found guilty of murder. Now, dressed as a human, she is mutilated with a knife. Then she is hanged by the neck until she is dead. A fresco of the execution will be painted on the west wall of the Church of Holy Trinity in Falaise, where it will remain for over 400 years. Now, ask yourself the question this case forces. Why did medieval Europe put pigs on trial? I know, it's tempting to laugh and move on. The Middle Ages were dark. The peasants were superstitious. Surely this is just a bizarre footnote. But it is not. The Falaise sow was not an isolated case. Between the 13th and the 18th centuries, European courts tried, formally and procedurally, hundreds of animals. Pigs, mostly. Pigs in those days were bigger, faster, and freer roaming than the ones you've seen. And they did, on a regular basis, kill and eat children. 34 pigs are recorded as having been executed for murder. But the docket was wider than that. A sow was hanged at Savigny in 1457, along with the question of what to do with her 6 piglets who had been caught at the scene covered in blood. The piglets were acquitted. Nobody could prove they had participated. Rats were prosecuted for eating corpse. Weevils were excommunicated for damaging vineyards. Bees were tried for stinging a man to death. In one famously baroque case, a French town tried a rooster for a heretical act of laying an egg. Defense lawyers were appointed, witnesses were called, verdicts were rendered. Sometimes, as with the piglets, the animal was found not guilty. This was not a joke or a folk ritual or a bit of medieval theater. The judges, lawyers, and townspeople treated these proceedings as full criminal trials. The death sentences were really carried out. The legal records are still in the archives. So, why? The historian Nicholas Humphrey gave one answer. The trials, he said, were a way to domesticate chaos. When a pig kills a baby, the baby's family does not see a tragedy. They see a moral wound in the world, a violation of order of things and evil that has erupted unexplained. The trial was a way of reasserting that the world made sense. Bad things did not just happen. Bad things were crimes. Crimes had perpetrators. Perpetrators could be caught, judged, and punished. Order could be restored. The legal scholar Ethler Cohen put it slightly differently. The trials were a way of reaffirming human authority over the entire universe. Everything that moved was a subject of human law. The boundary between people and thing was not drawn where we draw it. Pigs were incited, bees were incited, roosters who laid eggs were definitely incited. And here is where the mirror starts to turn around. Every era believes its legal categories are obvious. Of course, rivers cannot sue. Of course, chimpanzees cannot be plaintiffs. Of course, corporations are persons, but the cattle in the abattoir are not. Of course, you can patent a human cell line, but you cannot patent the men it came from. Of course. These distinctions feel as solid to us as the distinction between a sow and a citizen felt to the people of Falaise. They are not solid. They are choices. The line between person and thing has moved in every century of recorded history, and it is moving right now. Corporations were not always persons. Slaves were once property. Married women were once property. Rivers in New Zealand are now plaintiffs. Whales in California are not. Animals in your local supermarket exist by the millions in conditions that, if you saw them clearly, would haunt you for the rest of your life. If a future legal scholar 300 years from now opened the archives of the 21st century, what would they laugh at? Which of our obvious categories would look to them like a sow in a waistcoat? You and I cannot easily tell. The people of Falaise could not tell either. That is the lesson. The pig in the human clothes is a mirror. You are looking at it right now.